Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. We're going to be talking about Arteta in or Arteta out yet again today. Of course, the topic of conversation had really died down in recent weeks because obviously Arsenal were actually doing pretty well. But a few bad results for Mikel Arteta's side since coming back from the international break have really put the Spaniard back in hot water again, back in the danger zone of being in the bad books of many Arsenal supporters. And if they had their way, they would get rid of him right now. And we're going to obviously be talking about this situation. I'm going to give my opinion on it as well. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated, of course. But for now, we are going to be getting back into the main topic of discussion, and that is Arteta out, really, because I am kind of siding on that side right now. So basically, before we start, I want to say that I always find this Arsenal, and mainly for right now at least, the Arteta debate to be rather interesting and fascinating to get people's thoughts and opinions on. It's always an interesting debate to have. I think it really shows how much things can really change in football within a matter of days and weeks, simply for the reason that after the first 3 games of the season up to the last international break, people were sort of starting to come around to the process and the ideas behind Mikel Arteta, mainly because he was getting some decent results. Performances were still hit and miss, but the results were still pretty good. Arsenal were unbeaten for a large portion of this early stage of the season, but then the wheels have sort of started to fall off in recent weeks. Like I say, before the international break, things were looking a bit more positive for the Gunners. They'd recovered from their poor start to the season of losing their opening 3 games. They went on an 8-game unbeaten streak during that time, and that ultimately came to a head when they faced off against Liverpool, a game that they were going into their game again in a positive manner. They thought that maybe they could catch Liverpool on a bit of a downward spiral a little bit following their first loss of the season and the many injuries that Liverpool had. But really, it was a reality check dealt to them by the Reds as they smashed Arsenal 4-0 on the day. They did bounce back against Newcastle, but back-to-back losses against Manchester United, and more worryingly last night when they of course lost to Everton, meant that the pendulum of Arteta in or Arteta out has more swung again in the favour of Arteta out amongst the Arsenal supporters. From what I saw and heard last night from the Arsenal fans that were particularly on social media, that defeat to Everton is the final straw as far as they're concerned. Going into that game, you knew it was going to be an emotional game for both sides. There was pressure on Arsenal to win, whilst for Everton, there were of course other issues that were going on off the pitch that they were dealing with, as the side hadn't won in 8 games until last night. They were in a massive downward spiral, a manager that the fans didn't really take to. Of course, a lot of off-the-field issues in regards to their power hierarchy, their boardroom level, their owners. There was still a lot of talk before the game of a 27th minute walkout in protest of their owners and the club hierarchy. So there was a lot riding on last night's game, more than just the 3 points it seemed for both sides. The emotional atmosphere and the weight of expectation just seemed too much for the inexperienced Mikel Arteta and his slightly more inexperienced side overall to really handle, as they completely collapsed within the final 10 to 15 minutes of the game as Everton fought back from a goal down to win 2-1 thanks to goals from Richarlison and an absolute stunner from Demarai Gray. And really, it genuinely could have been more. Everton did have a few half chances and also had 2 goals by Richarlison originally ruled out before he finally scored at the 3rd time lucky kind of thing. Obviously, I'm a Liverpool fan, so I'm looking at this from the outside looking in, but I genuinely love to know if there are any Arsenal fans out there that still back Arteta, and I'd be fascinated as to know why that is. Like I say, most of the Arsenal fans that I saw last night on social media and on YouTube and stuff, they were basically calling for his head. They basically had enough. Last night's defeat was the straw that broke the camel's back. They want him gone because they just see the same sort of things happening over and over again in this sort of cycle, that Arsenal have a bad run, they get a few good results, they go back on a bad run. It's just a never-ending sort of cycle. Don't get me wrong, it's not entirely Arteta's fault, of course. Like most clubs, Arsenal are dealing with issues off the pitch with the people in power, the club hierarchy, the board, the owners. However you want to label them, they are a massive problem at that club. I get that and I understand that. And of course, the players have to take responsibility as well, particularly the more experienced players of that group. But overall, you can tell that, particularly in recent weeks, Arteta's inexperience has been shining through a lot. And it comes from his decision making, the tactics, the formations, the substitutions, all have accumulated to being rather questionable, particularly in recent weeks, of course. Take last night as one of many examples of this. He brings on Eddie Nketiah, a guy who's seemingly not going to be signing a new contract with the club, meaning that he's probably off on a free transfer come the end of the campaign. A guy who's been missing from the senior squad for many weeks, but then given 10 minutes against Manchester United on Thursday and then 20 minutes last night. He brings him on when the Gunners were in need of a second goal to try and kill the game off. And yet on the bench, you've still got the likes of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who, don't get me wrong, missed an absolute glorious chance last night. But even so, it's still Aubameyang. He's still got the potential and the ability to create and maybe even take a chance himself. And Nicola Pepe, the club's record signing. It's just strange decision making for me, and again that's what seemed to be a big factor in why many people are calling for Arteta's head, particularly after last night. And you can go through last night's game and you can make the weakest of arguments in defence of Arteta. You could say that chances that fell to Nketiah and Aubameyang should have been stuck in the back of the net and that Arteta wasn't the one to miss them. You can argue that Ben Godfrey should have been sent off for Everton in the first half for his challenge on Tomiyasu. But they aren't the issues. There's been more major issues that have gone on, and they're constant. It's the same kind of things that are going on week in, week out for Arsenal, month in, month out, game after game, bad period after bad period. You know, it's just the same sort of things that I'm seeing and noticing constantly, and everybody needs to take responsibility for that. But most of all, the problems lie with the manager. The problems definitely stem from the manager, who's meant to give them the confidence and the tactical know-how of how to set up and play in the big games. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I've said for a while that I've not been entirely convinced by this Arsenal revival in recent weeks. Even when Arsenal were on this mini unbeaten run, the football wasn't particularly amazing. Good in certain spells and in certain games, but, you know, not amazing. But at least there were small signs of progression. Mainly getting points out of games that they weren't playing well in. As in previous years, they wouldn't have got anything out of those particular games at all. But I still wasn't entirely convinced. Well, still wasn't entirely convinced by it all until I would start to see it happen on a more regular basis, or would see more continued progression throughout the entirety of the season. And to make Arsenal look better and more pleasing on the eye, of course. But right now, it's just not happening. I believe the outside of the top three, Chelsea, Manchester City and Liverpool, Arsenal would have been the worst of the best. And on the flip side to that, the best of the worst. And you just don't know whether that is the case or not with this side. You don't know what side is going to be turning up, in all honesty, because Arsenal are just so inconsistent, have been for a number of years. They're not that much further on than when they were under Unai Emery. I think they've got better players, but as far as coaching goes, and tactical awareness and know-how and knowledge and everything that goes along with that, I don't think they're that better off right now than they were under Emery a few years ago. Aubameyang got his big money contract and has since gone missing. Lacazette I think a Scarecrow up front could do a better job, in all honesty. Partey, okay, injuries haven't helped him adapt to the Premier League, but he's clearly showing no signs of integrating well with English football at all, which is a real shame because at Atletico, this guy was an absolute beast in midfield for Diego Simeone's side. So his performances have definitely declined. Pepe is nowhere near close to reaching the potential that he once showed in France, and you know, all of those players that I have named there are the ones that are the more experienced players of the group. If it wasn't for the likes of Aaron Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, Kieran Tierney, Emil Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka, I'd say that this season would show that this side would be completely dead in the water. But there is hope. There is hope that a better manager can definitely get this group of players to be playing proper football again. Overall, I'm not saying that Arteta's managerial career is completely dead, but I think a step down would do him the world of good. Plus, when you look at this Arsenal squad as a whole, he has begun a rebuild there. He has begun a change there, and that this Arsenal side, for the large part, is a young side, inexperienced, but with a whole lot of potential to go on and build something with. A few tweaks in terms of tactics, a few tweaks in terms of transfers and additions, and maybe getting rid of one or two other pieces of dead wood within that side are needed. But overall, most managers may be looking at this squad, maybe looking at this club and going, you know what, the foundations have been laid here. I can help take this club to the next level and build from here and build something bigger. In my opinion, Arteta just isn't the guy to take Arsenal forward any further. I believe from the outside looking in that he has taken them as far as he can go, and it's time for Arsenal to bring in an upgrade of a manager to take them to the next level and continue to build what Arteta will leave behind, obviously depending on where his future lies. Remember, this is Arsenal Football Club, and we've already seen this season that certain managers can jump ship from one club to another regardless of where they're at during that point and that time of the season. So, barring your obvious choices, your likes of your Jurgen Klopp's, Pep Guardiola's, Thomas Tuchel's and so on, they should have no problem in attracting any other kind of manager that they want to their club. In my opinion, Erik ten Hag would be a perfect forward-thinking choice for many years to come, and maybe even kind of a manager ahead of the closing era of, say, the Guardiolas and the Klopps maybe. But Graham Potter may not be a bad shout either, an up-and-coming English manager to really help steady the ship and build something better to take them to that next level. It doesn't have to be a big-name manager with a long and flashy resume. It just has to be a stable and smart choice that the Arsenal board need to make in regards to their next manager, should, of course, they decide to sack Arteta. But then again, given this board, their track history and who they are, with the board in place, anything is possible. Do I expect them to make the right decision? Arguably not. But of course, as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this whole Arsenal saga with Mikel Arteta? Who do you think is to blame at the club? I'd love to know, Arsenal fans in particular, but of course rival fans as well, if you want to jump in on this, or neutral fans, you want to jump in on your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, down below in the comment section on this big and major topic. I would love to read them because I think they will all make for interesting and fascinating reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see and speak to you all again soon in another video.